WWE 2K16 was a huge improvement from 2K15, but now 2K17 has arrived. They've tweaked some things, added some features, and removed some others. But do these all end up making for a WrestleMania-like moment with 2K17? Or, for us wrestling fans, are we still just hoping for that 5-star match? There's a lot to like about WWE 2K17. If you enjoyed the in-ring action portion of 2K16, that is brought back pretty much intact. There's a couple of minor things that have been changed up, some of which are definitely an improvement, but for the most part, the in-ring action remains relatively the same with just some tweaks. However, there have been changes to other modes and features that have been removed that ends up making 2K17 feel like it's lacking a bit and not quite as much of an evolution or step up from last year's 2K16. The game features an impressive roster. It's pretty cool to see well over 100 wrestlers in the game, and they're going to add DLC making it over 150 total licensed pro wrestlers will be included throughout the course of the life of WWE 2K17. Not only does that include most of the main roster that's currently working for WWE, but along with a bunch of Hall of Famers and legends as well. Though I would have liked to have seen a few new and different legends added, there was only a couple of changes up from the last few games as far as the Legends portion of the roster ends up going. The big highly touted thing that's been added to WWE 2K17 is the Backstage Brawl, finally returning after many years being absent from previous WWE games. You can do this in a couple of ways. You can set up just a matchup that's set up as a Backstage Brawl between two opponents, and when one gets knocked out, the match is over, or you can make it to the back through no DQ matches, but these can only be done in one-on-one situations. You can't have a 6-person brawl like you could in the old WWE SmackDown games. You could have 6 people in a hardcore match wrestling in the locker room. The area that is the Backstage Brawl area is pretty large, with a bunch of little rooms and side things, and a bunch of stuff to throw your opponent into, slam into their head, and put them through various objects. The Backstage Brawl, for the most part, is a fun addition, but unfortunately that's pretty much the biggest addition as far as match types go, though the ladder match has also been changed up. Ladder matches have greatly changed over the years with pro wrestling, and I feel like it's finally starting to be reflected a bit more here with 2K17. Finally, for one of the biggest changes, you only have a couple of spots that you're able to put the ladder. This may be a downside to some people, but for me, no longer are you having that frustrating factor of trying to set the ladder up in the middle of the ring and then climbing up to realize you're just a hair off from being able to reach the title or briefcase, having to climb down and set up the ladder again. You can also drape the ladder and be able to do moves through the ladder that ends up being laid flat. So there's a bunch of new possibilities, as well as big bumps can occur and wrestlers will be knocked out of the match. Similar if you've watched a pro wrestling match with a lot of people in it, usually when one guy takes a big bump, he kind of rolls out and let the other guys work for a little bit while he recovers, and then he'll rejoin the match eventually. And you have that option, which adds a bit of realism or a more realistic feel to these ladder matches. One thing that may just be me, though, is I do feel like the matches flow a bit better. I've only got a chance to simulate a handful of matches so far, but I played quite a lot, and I feel like moves kind of move into one another a bit better. I feel like there's more fluidity between the various moves, as well as counters. There's a good amount of counters, and I feel like they really add to the flow of the matches. This is something that I didn't quite feel as much when playing 2K16, and I put quite a lot of hours into that game. I feel like matches, and if you're going for a more realistic match type, I feel like that can be done a bit better here in 2K17 than in 2K16. Now, the couple of small changes to matches, though, is that the chain wrestling is no longer forced upon you at the beginning of matches. Chain wrestling still occurs, it's still a part of the game, but it occurs more now like when two wrestlers end up locking up at the same time and a few other key moments, but other than that, it's not forced upon you as much as it was in previous iterations. Also, taunting's been completely changed up. No longer you just taunt and gain a little bit of momentum. Now, when you taunt, you end up getting a stat boost for a period of time, like how quickly your momentum will increase, or increase in stamina and stuff like that for a short period of time. You have different icons for that kind of appear in your status bar when you end up performing these taunts. It's a nice little addition, but I honestly miss the whole being able to just do a taunt real quick and gain that little bit of momentum. Especially when I was like really close to a signature move, I could just pop a quick taunt and then be able to do it without having to risk doing another move to my opponent. Though, I'm sure some people will definitely like this new feature. Now, jumping into the game modes, unfortunately, Showcase mode has been completely removed. I know I was in the minority of someone who actually really enjoyed the Showcase modes in the previous few WWE games, and I really enjoyed Stone Cold Steve Austin's from last year, playing that abbreviated version of his career. Unfortunately, though, they decided not to go with the Showcase mode, instead focusing on other elements of the game, which, in other ways, I was actually okay with as long as there was significant improvements to the other gameplay modes that were included, because without Showcase mode, you're basically left with Exhibition, Online Play, and then the My Career and the My Universe. And unfortunately, My Career mode has been tweaked a bit, but honestly isn't that big of an improvement. You start off the career mode by creating your wrestler or importing one you've already created from the creation suite, though there's still no way to play as a female in the career mode, though they definitely improved the women's roster as far as the main game is concerned, with the likes of Charlotte, Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, and Bayley making it into the game this time around. Though I am still quite upset at the way they ended up making Dana Brooke look. She is absolutely one of the worst in-game models for any wrestling game I've probably ever seen, with some weird Sindel-like Mortal Kombat features. It's just absolutely horrible. Once you create your wrestler, though, you're dropped into the Performance Center and you kind of have your tutorial. You have a couple little matches there, as well as you get the tutorial on the new promo mode that has been added to the game, which was another one of the big features added this year. Promo mode kinda works like a visual novel type game where you'll get multiple choices and your goal is to pick ones that will either increase your heal or your face stat depending upon if you're a good guy or a bad guy, as well as allow you to work the crowd. You also get promo battles against other wrestlers where you're trying to one-up them in the conversation. While this is very cool and a nice addition and something I'm surprised took this long to put in, unfortunately none of it is voice acted whatsoever. Last year in the career mode, your main character had a voice, as well as there was some voice acting from some of the other characters. There's still a bit of voice acting here and there from some of the wrestlers, but as far as the promos are concerned, it's just silence with text at the bottom, which honestly kind of just took me out of it and made me not really do a whole lot with the whole promo stuff. Though it's also available in the Universe mode for you to mess with as well. Unlike last year though with career mode, you're not stuck at NXT defaultly. If you do really well from the beginning in kind of the tutorial matches, then you'll be moved up instantly to the main roster. Once I found this out, I intentionally lost one of the opening matches just so that I could end up on NXT because I wanted to pursue the NXT title, and I'm a big fan of the NXT roster and brand in general, and any rookie coming into WWE is pretty much going to start there anyway, so it made more sense to go there. Though, as you're progressing, getting better, you will eventually get moved up to the main roster just like you did in previous iterations of the game. For the most part, the career mode, though, remains the same. Even the backstage segments when you're interviewed by Renee Young, which now there is minus voice acting to these segments, it's almost the same exact choices. You're going to be asked about the new WWE video game. You're going to be asked about The Authority, which is still a part of the career mode. The Authority storyline has been pretty much over for almost 2 years in WWE, yet it's still a major feature of the career mode. There is the addition of the Heyman story mode to become a Paul Heyman guy. Once you make it to the main roster and win a title for the first time, you can go through that, but it's honestly a very small detail to the career mode, so for the most part, career mode is identical to 2K16 in almost every way. Besides career mode, the big other mode is the Universe mode, which makes its return. There have been some minor tweaks, though it itself is also relatively the same. You can go through, make your own brand split. There's no default brand split in the game. The game was way into development before the brand split actually happened on modern day WWE TV, but you can easily recreate it, put the wrestlers on which brand you want, create your own brands, your A and your B shows, select which titles are your main titles, your tag titles. If you want like a cruiserweight belt as the main title, you could technically go ahead and do that. You have the rankings for each of the belts. You can manually adjust the rankings for the belts if you want to, and you can also have it when you're simulating be automatic, where stuff is created as it goes as far as rivalries and such, or you can do it all manually if you like to. Added to the Universe mode, just like in the career mode, is the whole promos, and you can throw them in between any of the matches that you're booking on the main Universe mode. Though through the about 6 or 7 months of Universe that I've gone through so far, it seems relatively the same. The algorithms for matchmaking, all that seem about the same, though there has been some new cutscenes type stuff, or at least stuff I had never seen before from last year added to it, but still mostly unchanged. Now, Creation Suite. Now, this is the big draw for many people, including myself. When it comes to the Create a Wrestler, they thankfully have improved as far as the amount of hairstyles that are allowed for your Create a Wrestlers. One thing that kind of got my nerves last year was the fact that women didn't have quite as many hairs as men. This year, they have a ton of hairs. There's a lot of hairs, really cool ones. Ones that have been in older WWE games have now returned in this newer one. There's still a good amount of options when it comes to creating attire and adding logos. You can download custom logos or upload your own logos and put them on the outfits. There's various other parts of Create a Mode where you can put custom logos on ring aprons or on belts if you would like to as well. All that stuff is returning from last year's game. The big problem though, there's a huge problem with this year's Create a Wrestler mode. They got rid of body morphing. If you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, basically when you would select a wrestler and you were editing their body, you could make their arm really huge or really small if you wanted to. Same with any other of their body parts. That's gone. You now have like 8 default bodies that you can work with. You can mix and match like Frankenstein, different arm parts and different leg parts, but you only have about 8 for each of them, and that goes for men and for women. You're still able to do a lot when it comes to the colorization. You can still dye hair and add streaks of dye to hairstyles. You can also change the material that outfits are made out of, making them more shiny or metallic or more spandex looking by changing things. You can also do it per color. So if you want a color, like one part of the outfit to look more shiny than other ones, you can actually do that with this game. There is a huge improvement though. The load times are extremely fast. I think that's one of the reasons why body morphing was removed, though in older versions of WWE games on the last generation, I could body morph and still had decent load times when it came to items. So I'm not sure exactly why body morphing has been removed. I hope there's enough outcry that next year they will put body morphing back in. But I will say, as far as Create a Wrestler goes, the load times are so much improved. I mean, it's like a millisecond when you're putting on and trying on various hairstyles and pieces of your outfit. So it is a lot quicker to create wrestlers in this year's game. Though that minus of body morphing is a huge blow, at least to me. Other parts of Creation Suite, like Create a Belt, Create an Arena, and Create a Show, remain largely unchanged. The new additions, though, are Create a Video and Create a Victory. For the Create a Victory, this is finally allowing you to edit your post-match celebration. In previous games, the wrestlers, one for male, one for female, but they were always the same animations, and you had no control over them. Now you can edit it. You can pick any of the other wrestlers that are already in the game, as well as a few other generic kind of animations and ones from previous games that have been cleverly renamed to hide that they're based on actual wrestlers or previously employed wrestlers of WWE. But thankfully you now have that customization. You can also do it for championship mode and ones for just without the belts around their waist. So thankfully this is something that was a huge addition overall as far as kind of creating the wrestlers and kind of making them fit more in with the other wrestlers on the main roster. Create a Video allows you to create a custom Titantron. This isn't really as in-depth as you may like. It's basically a very small editing suite. You're able to put logos and stuff into the Titantrons, as well as you kind of have a default set of like these generic backgrounds and movie files that can play out, and you're able to kind of adjust stuff with it, changing the colorization, adding the logos and the animation that the logos take. There is actually a good amount here. For those who want to take the time to create some more stuff with these custom videos, there is enough there where I feel like you have enough creativity, you'll be able to do some stuff in it. But for a lot of people, you may mess with it briefly and then you may not bother with it from that point on. Though I am very glad this was included, as it's been a while since we had any kind of Create a Titantron included in a WWE game. Online mode, of course, makes its return. You have the 2K Live mode now, where you can earn gold medals by completing the daily challenges. Basically, every day they're going to change up the kind of match types there. These are No customization allowed, no editing to the wrestlers allowed. These are the default wrestlers on the roster. You can use ones that were part of the DLC though, and you go into a matchup against another person using the same kind of setup, and you see how well you can end up doing, and you can get a match streak going, and you earn points at the end of the matchups, and your goal is to level up and earn medals. Now, these kind of setups are like one-on-one two male superstars, or one-on-one with two female superstars, or one-on-one with a stipulation like cage or ladder match or something like that. It's kind of a nice little extra addition, but it doesn't add a whole lot to online. There's a WWE Live mode, which is your typical online mode where you can set up everything you want, all the match types, and go online with it. You have a join-up mode now where you can invite friends for either a tag team or a 6-man type setup, have it kind of set up where both of your friends end up joining you, and then go into matches. So your team's already together, and then jump into matches to work together against other people online. And then you also, of course, have a private match where you can set it up just amongst your friends, invite people, and set up the match types that you like. Through playing online, I had a few matches that worked fine, but then I still had a lot of input lag during other matches. I wasn't running into direct lag where my character was like stuttering or anything, but input lag was pretty bad in some matches, especially when it came to reversals and being able to kick out of pins, which sometimes worked great, and other times, no matter what I pressed, it wouldn't activate the pin button at all as far as trying to break up the pin while I was in one. Now, from the technical side of things, there was a day one patch that was over 9 gigabytes big to start off. Playing the game without that patch, though, is not recommended. There was a lot of bugs and glitches that I experienced, especially with eyes popping out of my character and other weird things that ended up occurring. Post-patch, thankfully, that kind of stuff was fixed, so you definitely need to download that day one patch, unfortunately, even though it's such a large one. There were, though, other problems and glitches. There was a couple of times where the game completely ended up crashing on me. There was some mishaps with tag matches and things not working well. There was also just a few little oddities here and there. I didn't have as much of the major bugs as I did last year at launch. Maybe I've just been lucky so far, as I have a suspicion that a lot of those glitches and a lot of weird glitches are still in this game, just from the past experiences. But I only experienced a very small handful and only a couple of crashes during my gameplay so far. One thing I will quickly rant about, though, is the commentary. This gets on my nerves every year. Yes, you can turn it off, but at which point when you turn it off, the silence kind of just in-ring action with the crowd noise only, which even then sometimes goes completely dead silent, and then you're just left with no sound whatsoever for a few seconds. But the commentary, Lawler, Cole, JBL, they return. I get it, they maybe were too far into development to change things up. I totally get that. But what would have been nice is to go and get Corey Graves, or get some of the other announcers, and have a different team for NXT. NXT is not called by Cole, Lawler, or JBL. Have some effort put into it. Lillian Garcia is doing the ring announcing for every one of the shows. I know it would take a lot of effort to record lots of more voices and other stuff like that, but those details do matter, not only to me, but I'm sure to a lot of wrestling fans out there. I get it, damaged ribs make it hard to breathe, but I do not need to hear that same line of dialogue every single match I do, no matter what. I'm sure they probably won't change that for next year. It'll probably be the same commentary again, but I really hope finally they will put just a little bit more detail into the game. It would really go a long way in the whole immersion of the WWE world. Wwe 2K17 is available for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One for $59.99, and while 2K16 was a big evolution from 2K15, that's not the case here. It's a step to the side, if not actually lower, because of some of the things that have been changed up and removed. I really feel like they should not have gotten rid of the body morphing, and I really feel like career mode and universe mode have not been changed enough to warrant really people going out and immediately spending the $60 price tag to get those few minor improvements, unless you really want that new roster. The changes with Backstage Brawling back, as well as the changes to Ladder Match, are quite cool, but it's not quite enough. With the exclusion of Showcase Mode, I was hoping for a lot of improvements to everything else, and I really feel like there hasn't been enough. With everything said, I'm going to be giving 2K17 a 6 out of 10. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.